Future Tactics: The Uprising is a turn-based tactical shooter developed by Z2 and published by Crave Entertainment in North America and Jowood Productions in Europe. The game was released on May 7th, 2004, with its PAL release coming in October of the same year, except on the PS2, that came in December for some reason. The game follows a man named Lo. Is that really the name we're going with? As he and a group of ragtag travelers try and survive in a world overrun with alien creatures. Development for the game began in 2001 under the working title Pillage, and was supposed to be published by a company called Rage Games, who, from what I can tell, mostly published soccer and racing games, and the Saturn port of Doom, of all things. Either way, they went bankrupt in 2003, forcing Z2 to scramble to find a new publisher, which they did in Crave and Jowood, respectively. The game released as a budget title in the West, and I'm not sure if that was because of issues with finding a publisher, or if that was always the plan. What else? The story was written by a man named Paul Rose, also known as Mr. Biffo, who, from what I can see, is primarily a writer of children's entertainment in the UK. I've never heard of any of the shows he's worked on. The music was composed by Tim Fallon. That's actually a pretty big swinging dick of a name to get for your music. More on that later. The game was released on the Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube, and PC. I actually wasn't aware of the PC version until researching this, which explains why I will be playing the PS2 version via emulator. Now, I know this is the internet, and I'm sure some folks are going to be some ways about much of anything, so I'm just going to say this right now. If you're the type of person to bitch and moan about emulation and ROMs and such, then you're entitled to your opinion, and I'd never try and take that away from you. Even if it's wrong. And you should know that I'm using a ROM that I ripped myself from a physical copy of the game that I own. I'm not even sure if this type of person exists, or if I'm just arguing with imaginary phantoms of internet contrarianism, veritable shades of being a cunt online. And by shade, I mean like the ghost kind, to go with the phantom analogy. Not that there aren't, shades of being a cunt. Not much else to go on. What's this? Holy shit, look at this thing. What a tortured little console this looks to be. Good God. This thing was released the same year as the 360? Jeez. Just look at those buttons. Can you imagine the sticky, barely noticeable feedback those would give you? I bet they clicked. And not that nice keyboard clickety-clack either, like that cheap, harsh click. You know the one I mean. Just looking at this thing agitates my carpal tunnel. God, I can feel the ache in my wrists already. But goddamn, if a menu like this doesn't take you back in time. Kinda reminds me of like the 360 Blades UI. I know it doesn't look like that, but like aesthetically, design-wise, it takes me back to a similar time. It's got the vibes, kids. The vibes. You wouldn't understand. Reminds me of being a cringe, dumb fuck, dirtbag teenager, actually enjoying video games. I wasn't sleepy all the time. Listening to Curtain Call and a bunch of cringe nu metal without a single hint of irony. God damn, I was insufferable. But I was happy. Wait a minute, I was miserable then too. Fuck. Nostalgia is bullshit. Oh, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, the video game. Our story begins with two characters, named Lo and Father. I'm gonna bet with a name like that, this guy's gonna be stepping out for milk in the next 5 minutes or so. On the other hand, our main character is named Lo, so all bets are off. Who knows, the game might surprise us. These two are hunting when they come across a group of creatures. Father wants to find a safe way around, but Lo runs in to shoot them up, which is strange because the goal is to reach the exit, not to kill all the enemies. Here we can get our first little taste of gameplay. This game is a bit of a chimera, mixing turn-based tactics, first-person shooting, kind of, and very, very light RPG mechanics. I'll go more in depth on the gameplay later, but for now I think we're going to need a little bit of set dressing. First off, I need an opinion. When you see this thing, what do you think? How about this guy? I don't know about you, but to me these are goddamn aliens. These are grumpy little men from outer space, if I ever did see one. But the game never calls them aliens, only ever refers to them as creatures. So one day these creatures appeared and slowly started taking over the planet, or at least causing ruin. They don't really seem to have much of a goal aside from. And from what I can gather, this game takes place, I'd say, around a decade after this happened. Our main character remembers a time before the creatures, and his little sister, who we'll see in the next level, was born after they showed up. I'm not sure how old she is, but she's between the ages of young enough to still be a child, but old enough to be trusted with grenades. So we shoot up the creatures and escape the canyon. The next level is a bit much for the second fucking level, I tell you what. So, of course, the creatures followed us back to our camp and are now sieging us with a ballista. So these not aliens who have access to laser weapons are using an ancient siege weapon and strapping themselves with big cartoon sticks of dynamite to nuke a bunch of homeless people. This level sucks, and it's not a good choice for your second level. We get two characters, Lo and his aforementioned little sister Pepper. The cutscene at the beginning of the level shows Pepper running off and getting grabbed by a mysterious stranger. A shot rings off, and then Pepper runs back to Lo, and now the camp is being besieged by the... I don't know, I'm calling these Noblins from now on. So we have two units that can pretty much move the entire span of the map, and can attack once each. And the enemies have at least a half dozen suicide bombers, who can move almost as far as you, and the ballista, which doesn't shoot you, it just shoots more bombers into the field. And this isn't a game that allows failure. If one character dies, that's it. Game over. Start again. All it takes is one wrong move and you're done, at least for the moment. But we don't have to live like this. Let me show you a little pro move here. You can blow up a piece of the hill that the ballista is on and just jump up. If you do it right, both Lo and Pepper can jump up and the Noblins can't hit you, so we can just shoot the ballista until it dies. Looks like the Noblins, or somebody, popped pops. Now that I think about it, the Noblins don't use standard guns, they use energy weapons. But I always thought that the gunshot in the cutscene implied to have been the thing that killed the dad.
Yeah, fine, whatever. Yes, master.
Definitely from Martha's side.
Who's there? Lo? Lo, I know it's you. I'm not scared, you know.
Pepper, come on, Pepper. I've got things I want to do.
Am I crazy, or does that cutscene seem to imply that that's what happened? So just on to the next level after that. Not gonna highlight what just happened more. Man, this game really doesn't like to take its time. It feels like it's stepping over itself to get to the next story beat. Like, it implies that not only your dad, but the entire camp got killed during this siege, and Lo and Pepper are the only survivors. You think it would take, like, a minute or two to set that up, like, just a little more. Or set anything up, for that matter. What even is the story? All we know is that things are fucked and the Noblins are to blame. You know what? Let's pause for a minute and take a look at the manual. There's an introduction in the manual. The sun blazed high over the parched workers as the sound of the picks and shovels filled the air. An eon had passed since man had last tread upon this holy ground. The ruins were unlike anything found before. Black obelisks emanating a green energy. Strange markings adorn the monuments and edifices of the island. The archaeologists could not identify the source of any of their surroundings. Was this the peak of Churchward's lost continent? Mu? Mew? Muh? Could this be the cradle of all mankind? Excitement broke out amongst the workers. A babble of many tongues came roaring from within the main chamber of what they assumed to be the central temple, a great pyramid, the base of which lay deep below the Earth's crust. The head researcher hurried down the main shaft. The workers parted as she entered the room. A strange hum, different from the low buzz of the ventilating fans, filled the room. A green glow emanated from a huge onyx egg encased in a blue, metallic device. The artifact floated just above the ground. The base was often at waist height, but the object bobbed slightly on its vertical axes. The researcher moved closer, reaching towards the artifact, making contact with one of the flashing green button-like dots on the exterior. A series of smaller red dots appeared about the green dot. The metal casing began to rotate, first clockwise, then counterclockwise, like the movement of a combination lock. The black egg began to glow brighter as green cracks appeared in its surface. The room was filled with the lurid green light. As the light subsided, a creature could be seen standing between the lead scientist and the artifact. The creature was like nothing seen before on this earth. It was a short, blue, reptile-like thing. Its head protruded from the center of its body, and it looked about quickly, confused. The creature put forth one of 4 appendages on its upper body, a hand, larger than its 2 lower arms, and opposite a cylinder shape decorated with 3 pulsating green lights. The archaeologist slowly reached forward to meet the creature's large, clawed hand. The scaly beast quickly withdrew its claw and presented the scientist with the tube on its left arm. A green blast left the woman dead on the dirt floor. In a panic, the flood of workers attempted to flee the temple, only to meet more of the blue monsters and their ends. The island was quickly overrun by the beasts, then soon the world. Okay, so we found a lost continent. There's a strange hum, pyramid underground, onyx egg, and a blue metallic device. And then looks like the Noblins popped out of that, and then everything went to hell. It's not very much to go off of. And for something that overran the world, they kind of seem to be doing a shitty job at it.
Now, let's be reasonable. We can resolve our differences peacefully. Ow!
Your superior intellect is no match for our puny weapons.
In the next level, we meet a man named Scallion, and he's got a rocket launcher, though it acts more like a mortar. But I'll take it. He drops some lore on us. Apparently, the Noblins can revive each other after death, and this guy knows where they keep the machine that lets them do it. After we beat the level, we're treated to a cutscene of our heroes being chased out of town by the locals.
We saved your village. Perhaps you would like to reward us. Some wine, perhaps. A night with your daughters.
Get ready for what?
For that. Same every time. You idiots, who's gonna protect us when they come back? Get out of our village. What's left of it? You destroyed my barn. I had 3 cows in there. Go on, get out.
So, next mission, we're off to steal the Immortality Engine, and the Noblins just have it sitting out in the woods, guarded by like 5 guys. Evidently, these 5 guys aren't fucking around. But that's more due to the game's weird damage system. More on that later. We eventually steal the egg, and Scallion knows someone who can potentially help us discover its secrets. He wants us to travel to a place known as... We arrive at the Valley of Screams so we can meet a...
She's a science witch. If she can't figure out how this thing works, nobody can.
Science witch? What? That makes no fucking sense.
One of these car mobiles is...
Fuck you. Here we get another new friend, and this little guy is a goddamn honest-to-goodness robot. This guy's name is Wardwarf, and despite being a little fella, he kicks an entire man's worth of ass. Once we get him upgraded, he can attack 4 times a turn, gets a zoom, and a double jump. Wardwarf out here doing work.
I dare say these grumpy little men better back the fuck off, or I'm going to have to get the strap.
So we cross the highway and meet up with Scallion's contact. Her name is Caraway, and she's our science witch. I'm not sure how she knows Scallion, but my headcanon is that they're siblings.
New template. Scallion, touch the machine.
Whatever you say, babes.
Yeah, definitely sibling behavior. So after this mission, we get to meet the remaining members of our ragtag group of wanderers. The General and his daughter, Peace. Can we tone it down with the fucking names? We also meet a character known only as Stranger. I know exactly what this story needed. No, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This was apparently the dude who grabbed Pepper during the 2nd level. That's not important. The important thing is that this is a turning point in the game. We now have the immortality engine working for us, and that means if a character dies in a level, it won't result in a game over. Which is a pretty neat move to keep a mechanic like that story relevant. Having it earlier would have been nice, but I can appreciate the decision to have it in a world-building sense. Even if it's world-building for a story that feels like the equivalent of waking up mid-dream and trying to write down what you were dreaming, then falling back to sleep, then waking up and reading what you had written. God, that's a messy analogy. Is that really the best I could come up with? So, the first thing we do after being granted immortality is start shooting each other. Low demands satisfaction from the Stranger in a one-on-one duel. It's pretty easy. He falls in the water and spends most of the fight just standing around. The next mission starts off with Low and Peace alone. Low is being a bitch about something. It's nothing special. This is the only level where you get to play as Peace, though. It's a brief level. The only remotely interesting thing is that you have to shoot a tree a few times to make a bridge. After that, we get another cold open. Where are we? Who knows? What are we doing? Who cares? How long has it been since the last mission? Who the fuck do you think you... This is a filler mission where Pepper runs into a collapsing building to escape monsters. Creatures. And we have to save her. She'll be fine. Okay, watch this cutscene and tell me what you think is going on. I mean, you can't tell me what you think is going. Just watch this, okay?
Look!
There are a bunch of noblins around a windmill. What's the big deal? Why does it matter? The cutscene was delivered like we're supposed to know the relevance of this windmill, but this is the first we're seeing of it. This is the first thing we're seeing after the previous level. You're not missing anything here. Why does the windmill have a health bar? Where are we? Are we in Holland? How did we get to Holland? What the fuck is happening? The last snippet of actual plot we got was the Stranger saying we can stop the Noblins by delivering the immortality engine to their island, which apparently would take around 6 months to travel to. So have we been doing that? I haven't seen nor heard from the Stranger since the dueling mission. Well, what's the plan? How long has it been? What is going on? I don't think I've ever played a game that's made me feel like this before. It feels like I'm falling asleep watching a sci-fi original movie and keep waking up. I have not cut much of this story. I'm genuinely baffled. I'm struggling to think of another game that makes me feel like this. God damn. Alrighty, I'm gonna stop for a spoiler break here. If you don't want the rest of this Olympic sprint of a story spoiled, you can go here. In the meantime, I'm just gonna play a little Tim Fallon music while we wait. So, the rest of the team was in the windmill, and that's why it was relevant. Why they didn't come out to help us fight, I don't know. We also learned that Peace is pregnant.
She's pregnant.
Granddad. You animal! Hey man, it wasn't me!
Leave him alone. It was me. I'm the father, I think.
What?
Does that make me an auntie?
I just love how the old man immediately turns to Scallion like, "You motherfucker!" Also, what do you mean, Lo? What, you think you're the father? Who the fuck else is there? Scallion said he didn't do it, and the robot can't do that. Can the robot do that?
What the devil is a backshot?
The next mission, we have to get a boat down the river while dealing with enemies. I kill all the enemies pretty easily, but I still don't know how to move this boat. Standing in it doesn't work. I destroyed all the things in the river, and that didn't work. Oh, I had to destroy the dock it was attached to. You know, that's actually a pretty neat subversion of a normal mission structure. The mission goal was kind of poorly worded, but it's neat nonetheless. The next mission, we have to cover Scallion while he sets up explosives on a dam. You basically just have to body block him until he's done. Let your guys get shot and hope they don't shoot at Scallion. Because as far as I can tell, you can't heal him while he's doing this. At the end of the level, the immortality engine falls down the dam into an enemy camp. This leads us to a timed mission, and Jesus, the timer even goes down when we're selecting a character. It's also in this mission, we discover that water kills the Noblins instantly. Like, look, I can walk into this water just fine. This is just normal-ass water. But if they fall in, they're immediately dead. Like, super dead. Which raises the question, how the fuck did they get off an island?
So what happens now if we're killed? Can we still come back?
Look out!
No!
Jesus Christ, they just shot that kid in the face. What an unceremonious and mean way to kill one of your characters, especially one that's a literal child. Didn't something like this just happen? Holy shit. Oh, I really hope child mortality doesn't become a recurring theme on this show.
The baby's coming.
Impeccable timing.
Causality really putting these guys through the ringer tonight. Jesus. This level is pretty easy. The general is kinda useless, but Low and War Dwarf make it a breeze.
Oh, well done. Oh dear.
What?
I believe my reactor housing sustained a direct hit in the battle. I appear to be leaking coolant.
Which means what exactly?
I'm afraid I'm about to explode.
What?
Sorry, old boy.
Well, no. This has to be one of the most abrupt culling of characters I've ever seen, and I can't decide if it's incredibly mean or fucking hilarious. Like, you just killed almost half your cast. They didn't even bother to talk about the old man and the robot. At least they buried the kid. Well, to be fair, there probably wasn't much left to bury the old man and the robot. So, after burying Pepper, Caraway tries to fix the immortality engine, but instead just teleports a bunch of noblins in. The stranger becomes playable for the first time, and what do you know, he has the same upgrade tree and weapon as Lo. There's one of two ways this can go, and they're both fucking stupid. We have to protect Peace and the baby, who's just big chillin' on the lighthouse balcony. Just gonna stand there, huh? Not gonna go inside or anything? Are you sure you should be wearing the baby on the front? Alright, so we beat the level, and the stranger's identity is revealed. And he's Lo from another possible future. Alright, this is a double whammy. He's from an alternate dimension and from the future. They did both of the stupid fucking ideas. So our Gallon hero bitches about having a hole in his shoe, which is weird that they're still trying to make Lo seem kind of like a whiny dipshit. I know we barely get any character moments or developments, but you think the game would, use the death of his little sister and the birth of his son to try and, give him a reason to kind of grow up, mature as a character, maybe? Just a little bit? No? Okay, then. Oh, and the baby's name is Hope, because of course it is. So what's left of our group travels to the island to stop the creatures once and for all. We also get to learn what the immortality engine actually is, and oh boy is it a doozy. It turns out that this floating egg thing is a piece to a bigger machine, a machine that, wait for it, is responsible for the creation of the entire universe. Yeah, this fucking thing is a piece of the singularity, and we've been using it for easy bake reincarnation. Also, the creatures are from another dimension, I think. And how the game informs us that the scale of this little adventure has gone to cosmic levels is a half-page diary entry in between levels. I can't tell if this story is the result of a bigger idea not coming to fruition due to, budget or time constraints, or if it was just hastily written on a napkin once they realized they couldn't ship a game without one. So our heroes arrive on the island, and it's a pretty straightforward shot to the end of the game. We start on a beach and have to make it to a big door. It's pretty straightforward. Fun fact, did you know that these big guys with the guns in their chest are extremely vulnerable to melee damage? Did you know that you could hit enemies with melee if you get close enough to them? Well, you should have RTFM. Still don't know how you'd figure out about the Centrics, though. I can't imagine what would possess you to waltz up to the biggest, most imposing enemy in the game and give it a love tap. Especially in a game that loves one-shotting you.
He's got a board with a nail in it!
And save humanity, will ya?
Run, Kodos!
Next up, we have a maze level, which is a cool idea. This gameplay with the focus on line of sight and environmental destruction, fighting in a giant maze is actually pretty neat. We have to shoot big buttons to open the doors that lead us to the exit. It's cool overall. The next level is a hallway with a few guys in it, but that's not the draw here. It's what's at the end of the hallway. We get our first and only boss fight in the game. This fight is kind of interesting. You have to shoot his gun until he pops his head out, and then you have to spread your team around and hide because if the boss is looking at the person who's shooting, his gun blocks his weak point and you can't get the shot off. It's a neat concept for a fight, but it fumbles its execution. After the first turn or two, it looks like his AI kind of broke down, and he basically just stood there and let me shoot at him. I was hoping I could kill him with that. Now we move on to our final level, which isn't all that much. We just have to get our guys to the red circle at the end of the level. There are these orb things that can shoot at you, and I think destroying them opens up a bridge to the platform they're on, but I'm not entirely sure. I just use the teleport shots to carry Lo and other Lo to the opposite side of the map, and then let Scallion and Caraway die. It's a very tame and not very memorable last level. Although the second to final cutscene does show us the creature's homeworld blowing up. So, does that mean they were aliens? Or is their homeworld Earth from another reality? Like, they arrived on Earth through a tear in reality, but did the tear open in the same spot on two different Earths from two different realities? Or did it just open in a random spot in the universe? We get a brief cutscene taking place 6 months later. It implies that the timeline has corrected itself despite everybody technically dying during the last level. It also implies that everyone affected by the engine has been changed somehow. Lowe says that Pepper's grave was found empty, and he's gonna set off to find her. Ooh, that's pretty rough. What the fuck? To be honest, I don't know what I was expecting. At least we got a final cutscene, and not just a text entry and cut to credits.
Gotcha.
Wait, what about the old man and the robot? As I said before, Future Tactics' gameplay is a bit of a chimera, mixing a turn-based tactics game with some, I guess you could call first-person shooting, and some almost kind of RPG elements. The game is team turn-based, at least for your first playthrough. You pick a member of your team, and you can either move or shoot. Moving gives you full control of your character, and you can move and jump pretty much wherever in a given level. You don't just get one move per turn though. When you start moving, you can see a green circle denoting your character's range of movement, some characters having more than others. But when you stop moving, a blue circle appears. This is where you can move after your first move phase. The more you move during your initial phase, the less you can move the second time. So you can position yourself for a shot, take that shot, and then move into cover. This is crucial because line of sight means a lot in this game, and you don't want to get caught out in the open. Speaking of, when an enemy sees one of your characters, it'll inform all the enemies nearby, letting them know of your position. Now, I'm not 100% sure on how this works. I think after breaking line of sight, enemies will assume that any given character's in the last place they were spotted until they're spotted again. I know I've seen enemies take pot shots and try to flank positions I wasn't in anymore because that's the last place they'd seen me, or at least that's what I think they were doing. Sometimes it's hard to tell if that's what's happening or if the AI is just being kinda dumb. Either way, when it works, it's really cool, especially given a game like this. It may make the game a bit on the easier side, but I'd much rather that than having the enemy AI cheat and always know where the player is. Shooting has two modes, a first-person silent scope kind of thing, and a sonar mortar. The first-person mode has the player try to move a reticle onto an enemy they want to shoot, which is difficult due to the crazy high sensitivity and the constant movement of the aiming reticle. This is by design. The reticle will drift in the last direction you pushed it in. Then you have to line up two different lines that travel across the screen. The closer you are to the middle, the higher damage you do. Characters also have an upgrade that grants extra damage if you press X right before shooting. The second method is mortar fire. This opens up a sonar-like screen, and the player has to stop a line moving in the radar's diameter and then stop a line moving clockwise to pinpoint the target you want to hit. Every character also has a unique upgrade tree with their own abilities and attacks, with some getting a zoom or the ability to fire multiple times in one turn. There's a teleport shot that swaps you with the character you're shooting at, friend or foe. There's a healing shot, a beam attack. I didn't use a lot of these, to be completely honest with you. The environment is completely destructible. I really like this because it makes the fights feel more dynamic and offers the player some unique strategies. Like, in a lot of these levels, I didn't have much use for the mortar characters, usually due to range. But certain levels that didn't have much cover or required me to advance to a certain position, I could use them to make craters in the environment that my other characters could take cover in. There are also usually things like cars or boulders in the environment that can be launched with gunfire and explosives. These can bounce around the map and injure any characters they hit and can cause a good bit of chaos. Alright, I've got to talk about the game's weirdest mechanic, and that's the leveling system. You can find upgrade packs in almost every map. There are usually two. Then you can apply an upgrade to any character in that map. But the upgraded ability can only be used when that character reaches a certain level. Characters level up by hitting enemies, with headshots granting more XP. But this isn't the only thing that leveling does. Looking at the footage, you may notice sometimes when enemies do an exceptional amount of damage to one of my characters. Or alternatively, my characters do almost no damage to the enemies. This is all due to the character's level. Characters who are even one level apart will do vastly different damages to each other, with the lower level character barely causing a scratch, and the higher level character almost consistently killing the unit within 1 to 2 shots. Okay, maybe it's not always that bad, but it's still a very, very noticeable difference. Now, I know what you're thinking. A linear game with no backwards progression where your units are predetermined, with some units appearing late game or only being playable for a scant few levels, and a missable upgrade resource that's only available to units within the level it's found, a character leveling system that largely determines if a character is completely useless or not. This kinda sounds like a genuine nightmare to play. It sounds like if you don't play your cards right, you can end up late game with severely underpowered characters and no upgrades. And you're not exactly wrong. But this is where another quirk about this game comes in. You see, if you die during a level, all upgrades found and experience gained is kept as long as you choose to continue. That means, while you may be kinda screwed upgrading certain characters, if you're ever stuck, the game lets you grind your characters out as long as you don't mind playing the same level over and over again. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just like a band-aid measure applied late in development due to time or budget constraints, instead of, when they couldn't actually do like a balancing pass on the game. But I'll take this over just being able to screw yourself over and having to restart anytime. It's a small mercy that I'll gladly accept. And even at its worst, the game isn't very difficult anyway. Future Tactics also has a versus mode that can be played between 2 players. It can supposedly be played against a bot, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. The last thing I'll mention about the gameplay is that there is somewhat of a new game plus. None of your levels or upgrades carry over, and while I did read online that there was a way that you can choose which level you want to replay, I couldn't get that to work either. What a second playthrough does change, though, is how your turns work. As I said before, your first playthrough is team turn-based. You get to move your entire team, and then the enemy goes. On the second playthrough, this switches to individual unit-based turns. So one of your units gets to go, then an enemy, and then so on and so forth. This is neat, if not a little weird, and having a new game plus where your character levels and upgrades carry over, and maybe some level scaling would have been nice, but this is a change up to gameplay nonetheless, and I'll take it. I like the way this game looks. It's got a cartoon style that really fits well with the chunky lower poly models. It reminds me of a Saturday morning cartoon that never existed. Future Tactics has what I'm going to call budget game aesthetics, and I mean that in the most loving way possible. It's chunky, colorful, and stylized. Every character has a unique look to them. This also goes for the Noblins. They're not the most original looking things, but they fit the game just fine. They all look like weird, grumpy little guys, and I like them. The environments in the game are okay, if not a bit sparse and bland. Nothing spectacular really, but the art style does give them charm. You never get much context for where you are and why you're there or how you got there. But you can bet, wherever you are, it's gonna look cozy. That's what that's the word I'm gonna use. These environments look very cozy. One of the benefits of emulating this game is that I can upscale it. I think I'm upscaling at 4K right now, and I only noticed some skyboxes tearing and the occasional graphical hiccup on 1 or 2 levels. The stylized lower poly models and the characters and the environments all look really good upscale. The only thing that really stands out is some of the lower resolution, static pictures and textures and stuff. Other than that, everything else gels really well with the upscale. I'm kind of floundering here, looking for any elegant way I can articulate how much I like the way this game looks without just saying, "Oh, I really like how this game looks." But goddamn, I really like how this game looks. Another thing that always caught my eye about this game was the box art, and to be honest, it's one of the things that's kept this game alive in my memory all these years. I mean, look at it. We got this cool logo, we got our 3 heroes drawn in this really cool, expressive-looking comic book style. I don't know if there's a proper name for it, but I love when the characters' eyes are shaded in like this. You get all this implied action and mayhem, and I think it's really eye-catching. I like it. I wonder what the European art looked like. Lord have mercy, look how they massacred my boy. Ugh. Every single part of this cover is worse. Just, ugh. Ugh. What are you shooting at? What are you grabbing for? Why does she look like that? Why are you mewing at me? This is actually repulsive. Could you ever imagine walking around your local Game Crazy and seeing this on the shelves? Ugh. 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 Get your 4 kids looking game box ass out of here. Ugh. In terms of audio, the game is alright. Nothing spectacular. I didn't recognize any of the cast when I checked the IMDb, and none of the cast members were labeled, so the people you're probably going to hear speak most are Lo and Pepper, and overall their voice work is largely inoffensive. I mean, as inoffensive as hearing British people speak can be. I kid. I'm not kidding.
Yes, Master.
Definitely from Martha's side.
The soundtrack, on the other hand, is pretty damn good. Sparse and kind of repetitive, but good overall. It's composed by Tim Follin. For anybody not in the know, Tim Follin is a video game composer who's worked in the industry from 1985 to 2006. He returned in 2015 and has been working in the industry ever since. Most of Tim's work is for games on 8-bit home computer systems like the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. He also did a lot of work on the NES and the SNES. You can't really go wrong with having Tim Follin working on your game music, and here is no different. During the player's turn, the music is catchy and undistracting and loops pretty well. The enemies get a little more variety in their music. Their tracks usually have a little more energy. They forego some of the flutes, replacing them with electric guitars. There are only around 11 tracks, so the soundtrack can get kind of repetitive, but overall the tracks are catchy and they serve their purpose. I overall enjoy the way this game looks and sounds. Hey folks, just wanted to do a quick aside here. Ross Scott, the gentleman over at Accursed Farms, has started a campaign to take these big companies to task for killing video games. So if you own a copy of The Crew and are upset at Ubisoft shutting the game down, or if you just don't like the fact that these big companies can straight up make the games that you bought and paid for inoperable, go to stopkillinggames.com. I will leave a link to Ross Scott's video and the website in the description of this video. Now, back to our show.
There you have it. Back to you, Casey.
I enjoyed my time with Future Tactics. I enjoyed it when I played it as a kid, and I enjoyed playing through it for this video. It's a budget title through and through, and I mean that in a loving, nostalgic way. Games like Future Tactics remind me of a time where I can walk into a Blockbuster or any similar type store and peruse their games section, looking for something new to play. There was no looking up gameplay or reviews before you buy, and all you had to go off was hearsay in the game's packaging, maybe a Nintendo Power or a demo disc. God, remember demo disc? No. Stay focused. In my mind, that era of gaming felt magical. It felt like the Wild West where any game you dared to purchase could be the greatest thing you've ever played or the biggest disappointment. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware that nostalgia plays a huge role in these feelings, and to be honest, your odds of finding a true hidden gem of a game is probably higher now due to the colossal indie game scene and just how accessible game-making tools are. I'm not actually sure where I'm going with this sentimental ramble, so I'll just move on. Is Future Tactics a good game? Yes. Yes, it is. It's fine the way it is. It's not the best game you've never played or any other catchy misnomer, but it's a fun little diversion that takes a genre of games I overall enjoy and does something interesting enough with the gameplay to be its own thing. Well, that's one more down. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I appreciate you all immensely. I've chosen the next game, and at the time of recording this, I'm just hoping Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't take over my life. But I'm gonna try my damnedest to not let that happen. So until next time, stay safe and take care. Oh, I almost forgot. I've been forgetting the most important part of these videos. Don't forget to like. I feel like that joke might be hacky and overdone. I'm just hoping it doesn't land me time in the cubes. The Gizmondo's best-selling game was called Sticky Balls?
Have you perchance heard of D's Nuts?